U.S. credit card debt ending 2018 at a record $870 billion. To Barron's associate publisher, Jack Otter. Jack, we were just talking in the break. I mean, in a way, you have to be a little nuts, or at least very desperate to go for credit card debt, because what is it now, 17%?
17% and change.
17% interest if you
and
want to borrow.
To the desperate point, these numbers are always squishy, but people say that around 33%, a third of people who go into debt, do it because of an emergency, a medical emergency. The car breaks down, a tree hits your roof. So it's the borrowing of last resort has to happen. Other people, of course, it just kind of slide into credit card debt by buying a little bit more than they can afford. And that's really a major mistake, because then when that tree slams into your roof, you're in much worse shape than you would have been had you been ready.
Now, there is a seasonality about this figure, because a lot of people still haven't paid off their Christmas bills, right? Their holiday bills. So they're getting into that. But again, to use to hold over a credit card beyond the due date to the point where you are paying 17%, you shouldn't be buying that thing to begin with, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this, and I realize people say, well, I got to buy these things. It's tough. But they need to look at the hard numbers and then make a decision if you still really need that thing. So to use the 17 and change, and the average credit card debt right now is, I think, $5,700. So if you just paid off the minimum each month, hey, I'm covering my minimum, you would be in debt for nearly 20 years, and you would pay in interest far more than you actually borrowed, something like $7,000 or $8,000 on that $5,700.
Now, you would think that older Americans would get it on this, but it's exactly the opposite. Older Americans, 30% of the credit card debt is held by folks over 60. 30%. And that gets to your point that it might have been a medical emergency that created the problem.
But it's a really tough situation, because in that age group, at some point, could be soon, could be later, your income stream is going to be fixed. You no longer have that paycheck coming in from your job. You've got however much you saved. You've got to make that last the rest of your life. And to pay 17.3% on that debt on a fixed income is a really bad situation to be in.
Now, the flip side of that is the good news, which is that folks under 30 years of age, I guess that they all qualify as millennials, only 7% of the credit card debt is held by folks under 30. So apparently they got the message. Maybe it's because they have a lot of student loan debt or whatever, but they got the message about credit cards, only 7%.
Student loan debt, first of all, is very serious. In 2010, it passed credit card debt, and it's now around $1 trillion versus $870 billion.
But that may make them say, okay, I've got this one debt load, I don't need another.
Well, and then the joke is millennials don't want to buy anything. They get all their information, everything free online. It's a rental mindset rather than a buy mindset. Whether it's Spotify or Netflix or whatever, you're not purchasing, you're just renting, and so maybe that will work out well, as long as you don't get contract creep where you rent too many things.
Pulling back to the entire debt load, we shouldn't minimize that either, right? The entire debt load is huge, right?
Well, and actually there's a fairly good statistic on credit card debt, which, at least as a percentage of GDP, it is going down. Remember, $870 billion today isn't what it was in 2008, whereas the federal debt, of course, has recently started skyrocketing, so that as a percent of GDP is higher for the first time ever. And corporate debt is very high. Now, granted, low interest rates right now, that's why they've borrowed so much.
That's why it's all happening.
But there is a lot of debt piling up, and that is worrisome over the long term. What's going to happen there? If rates do spike, then that carrying cost gets a lot higher. This is worrisome.
The perverse incentives of low interest rates.
Yeah, exactly.
It does happen. Jack Otter from Barron. It's great to see you, Jack.
Great
Thank
to be
you
here.
very much.